Hi everyone, I am Elle. Thank you so much for joining me for the Why Your Writing Feels So Hard and What to Do About It webinar. I'm so happy you're here. We are going to learn so much today. I want to make sure you have a pen and paper handy, shut down any distractions, shut down your email, your phone, and kind of really try and focus today on what we're going to learn. And we're going to go through a lot, so I hope you're ready. So first of all, let's talk about if you are in the right place. So if you are a coach, if you are a virtual assistant, if you are a service-based business that provides one-on-one services to clients, you are in the right place. If you've been struggling to write your website by yourself, you're in the right place. If it's time to move your business forward, if your business has moved forward in the past few years, but your website is just not reflecting where your business is at right now, you're in the right place. And if you've been stuck in overwhelm paralysis, you are in the right place. So this is really for anyone, whether you are just starting out or whether you've been in business a few years and you're refreshing your website. What you're going to learn today will work for you. So what you're going to come away with. So this is what you're going to learn today. You are going to learn my unique BAM method. So you'll finally feel ready to write your website. So BAM stands for brand. We're going to talk about brand voice and writing style. We're going to talk about developing your standout brand statement, which really forms the kind of foundation for everything else you write on your website. We're going to talk about audience, which is the 5 things you need to know about your audience before you can write for them. And we're going to talk about the copywriting secret that allows you to reflect your reader's thoughts in your words. And really, that is the secret sauce. I absolutely love talking about that topic. So I'm going to get really excited when we get there. And the third thing, the third part of my BAM method, the M, is mapping. So what web pages do you actually need? Planning out the pages before you start writing will help you so much. And what journey do you want your visitor to take on your website? What do you want them to do at the end of each web page? If you know all this information before you start writing, it really will help you when you come to actually write the words, to actually know where you're leading people. It really does kind of give you that real wealth of information. So we have a lot to get through. This is not one of those webinars where we talk fluff for 30 minutes and then I sell for 30 minutes. I have been to those webinars. I would never do one of those webinars. I know what it's like. You come away and you're kind of like, did I actually learn anything? So we've got a lot to get through. At the end, I am going to be talking about my Website Words Workshop, which is my signature course where I actually teach service business owners how to write their website copy. So right now we're talking about kind of how to get ready to write, where you need to be in order to not feel overwhelmed. And then the Website Words Workshop actually takes you through step-by-step templated pages with me in your corner the whole time, actually how to write the words themselves. So I'll talk about that a little bit later, but this is definitely not one of those hard sell webinars. I really wanted to make this valuable to you. I want you to come away kind of feeling like, even if you don't join the Website Words Workshop afterwards, that you have everything you need to start writing your website. So that's really my kind of intention here. So let's get going with a bit of social media sharing. If you like sharing on social and you really kind of want to let everyone know what you're doing and let everyone know that you're making this great step for your business, please feel free to screenshot, please feel free to take a photo now and share, and make sure you're tagging at 23 Wise Words. And then I can kind of follow you back and follow your business journey and follow how you come to, as you come to write your website and as you come to launch. I'd really love to give you some love back. So please feel free to share and take a photo of what you're doing today, and tag on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you kind of do most of your socials. All right, so first of all, I just want to kind of start by asking you to gauge where you're at right now. So just in your head, I want you to think about sitting down and starting to write your website. So how do you feel, with 1 being the kind of most daunted, most overwhelmed, most stuck, and 10 being like, got it, no need to do anything else, I'm ready to write. So I want you to think in your head, where are you at on that scale? Do you kind of fit towards the 2 or 3, 4 or 5? Are you a bit more confident? So just kind of think about that number right now. And then at the end, we're going to kind of look back and see if we can kind of move you up the scale a little bit with what we learned today. So think about your number in your head and kind of create a mental note, or even jot it down on your paper if you've got something handy. Okay, so do any of these quotes or statements sound familiar to you? I literally don't know where to start. I've got notes everywhere, my desktop, my notepad, in my head. I just can't write. I hear that all the time, that word I can't write. And it really breaks my heart, because my big thing is that you can write. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but everybody can and should learn these basic copywriting skills. If you own an online business, you are going to have to write for it. And learning these skills, these copywriting, sales psychology skills, which I am going to teach you today, will really elevate your business and really kind of give you that competitive advantage. And I promise you, you can write. You can. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm too overwhelmed. There's too much to think about. I don't know how to explain the things in a way my ideal client will understand. So those are all some really, really common quotes that I hear. And you are not alone there. So I just want to kind of call that out there. And we're going to change all this. We're going to kind of make sure that by the end of this, these kind of quotes are not filling your head with doubt. So before we go on, I just want to kind of really quickly introduce myself. My name is Elle. I run a copywriting or sales copywriting business called 23 Wise Words. So I work one-on-one with clients to write their sales copy. So that might look like landing pages, websites, email sequences, all sorts of kind of copy that leads to a sale. And I also teach business owners how to write their website copy in my website words workshop. So my real thing is around baking in the psychology. So when I went to university, I actually studied psychology and public relations, and everyone was kind of like, how are you going to find a career that combines those two things? So I just love to write, which was why I did PR. There's a lot of kind of writing press releases involved. And I just I'm fascinated by human psychology, and behavioral psychology in particular. So I kind of was like, I'll combine them. We'll see what happens. And yeah, as I left uni, I parked psychology. Everyone was right. It was kind of like, I'm not going to be a psychologist, so I'll keep it as a passion. And maybe kind of one day come back to it, who knows. So I went down the marketing route. I worked in marketing agencies, advertising agencies, PR agencies, and then eventually kind of started my copywriting business, 23 Wise Words, around 6 years ago. And what I realized was, so I started off writing content, so lots of blogs and that kind of thing. And then I moved into sales copy, and I had this kind of aha moment where I was like, this is a combination of psychology and writing. There is so much psychology involved. There's so much science involved in copywriting. And I can really draw on what I learned and bring this in. And I can combine these two passions and skills. So I kind of proved everyone wrong, which I was pleased about. But also kind of the moral of the story is, follow your passion, and who knows, you might find something where you can combine. But also this idea that copywriting is not a dark art. It is not an innate skill that you're either born with or not. You can learn it. You can learn the science. You can learn the psychology. And that's what I'm kind of I'm really passionate about teaching business owners today, is this idea that you can write for your business. It does not need to be this kind of big, elaborate, creative process. You can learn tips, tricks, formulas, science, and that's what I'm here to teach you. So I'll go through some of that today. A lot of it is kind of what I teach in my website words workshop, which is really a lot of sales psychology in there, which is really, really, really interesting. But today we're going to touch on it a little bit, because you do need to involve some of this sales psychology before you start writing for your website. So you can find me at 23 Wise Words. So it's the number 23 Wise Words on Instagram. That's where I'm kind of most active. And I'll share a link to that at the end. Okay, so let's get into it. So the biggest mistake most people make when they start to write their website is they sit down, open a laptop, grab a coffee, and kind of hover their hands over the keyboard and think, okay, I'm ready to write. But the inspiration never comes. So it's this idea that it's just because I've blocked out 4 hours of my day, I'm suddenly going to be able to write my website. And it just doesn't happen that way. And it can be so frustrating and so overwhelming. But there's actually it's not possible. Even the world's best copywriters cannot just sit down and start writing. So we're going to talk about what you actually need to do before you start writing. Another myth I hear all the time is, once you've identified your ideal client, or you've got this avatar or target audience profile in mind, you can suddenly write for them. So as long as you know what they eat for breakfast, or if they prefer TikTok or YouTube, as long as you know that, then you can suddenly write for your ideal client. But actually what I say is there is a step in between. Like, just knowing all this information and then just sitting down and being able to write for them does not happen. There is this massive kind of gap in the middle, which is what we're going to talk about today, that isn't really talked about in marketing. So if you've ever been frustrated by this idea that, oh God, I really know who I'm talking to, but I just still can't write for them, we're going to debunk that myth today, and we're going to talk about what you actually do need to know before you start writing. Okay, so there's 3 things you need to do before you start writing your website, which makes the whole thing quicker, easier, and nails the message. So I have written loads and loads of websites over the years for my clients. And what I started to realize was there was always 3 things that I needed to do before I started writing. There was 3 elements that I needed to have in place in order to really kind of nail the message and also make the process quicker and easier. Otherwise, it was just kind of this laborious struggle to get to the end. And every page was kind of like, oh, I have to start a blank page again. And it was this daunting blank page syndrome. So what I realized is 3 things that you actually need to know in advance or need to prepare in advance in order to make writing a lot quicker and easier. So this is my unique BAM method. So BAM, as I said earlier, stands for brand, audience, and mapping. And really, if you get these things in place, then writing for your website is going to be so much easier. So it works because you're never thinking of the words from scratch. So you're never sitting down to a blank page. You're never kind of tapping your head, thinking of inspiration will suddenly strike. You've got the foundations there for your draft, and you can just kind of pull in what you've learned, and you're kind of starting with at least some rough draft there. So the first step is knowing your brand. So brand can be such a scary word, especially as a small business owner. If anyone's ever worked in corporate, you will know that brand can literally be kind of a never-ending saga of just kind of different elements. So you can end up with like 37-page brand strategy documents with pillars and promises and values and mission statements and all this different stuff and logos and like all the kind of brand attributes. And it can be so overwhelming as a small business owner. You're kind of like, where do I start with brand? When we're writing our website, look, it helps to have some brand foundations in place. Of course it does. It can't hurt. But what we really are talking about today is brand voice. So that is the element that is really going to make a difference when you're writing your website. So brand voice is the language and the writing style you use on your website, and then in everything you write for your business, from answering an email to writing an Instagram caption. So it really is this kind of consistent thread along all your marketing that people can kind of identify as you. Just like people identify you as you when you go into a room and talk, or when you're on the phone, or even in text messages. Like, you have this consistent tone, this consistent kind of style of writing, and you want to make sure that that kind of comes across in your brand voice as well. There are lots of ways to develop brand voice. What I'm going to do today is just talk about the 2 really common questions and how we can kind of answer those questions and give you some little tips about developing your brand voice. Now, your brand voice will develop over time, and you'll create a style that you actually become really comfortable with. So don't feel like you need to have it all ironed out before you start writing. Don't let that be a stopper, but just kind of have an idea of how you want to sound. And I'm going to give you some tips to do that today. So one question I get asked all the time is, should my brand voice sound like me or my clients? So look, it's important to be authentic. And as a one-on-one service provider, you are going to be interacting with your client out of the realms of your website or your words. So you're going to speak to them. You're going to be kind of maybe meeting face to face, whatever your business is. So you need it to be consistent with how you talk. So whenever I get asked this question, I always say, err on the side of sounding like you. So try to the way you talk, try to write the way you talk. And a great way to do this is actually to just kind of read things out loud. So whatever you write, read it out loud. Does it jar? Are there any words that you're kind of like stumbling over, or you're like, oh, that doesn't really sound right? Or is any of the punctuation a little bit off? Like, you're kind of like, oh, I would really emphasize this, so put an exclamation mark in there. Or, God, this sentence is really long and I don't really talk like that. I talk in kind of more quick bursts. So put in some more full stops. So it's really important that you sound things out, that you talk things out loud, anything you write. And that's how you'll kind of start to develop your brand voice and really start to kind of have this authentic tone that sounds exactly like you. So there are 5 questions that you can use to help you define your brand voice. So Number one is, do I want to come across as a mentor, as a colleague, as a peer, or as a friend? So once you know this, it gives you a really good gauge on how formal you want your writing to be. So if you want to be a mentor, if you want to be this kind of thought leader figure, if you want to kind of mentor and guide your reader through the process of kind of solving the problem that you solve for them, your language will be very different to if you want to come across as this kind of on a level, I'm with you, I'm in the same phase as you, with kind of friends vibe. So knowing that in advance of writing is really, really useful. Know what words and phrases your target audience would use to describe what you do. So often I see people describing what they do in words that their target audience don't use. So a big one I see is with coaches. So coaches tend to use the word somatic a lot. So somatic coaching. So this is kind of using your body as part of the coaching and kind of somatic. But their audience don't know what that word means 9 times out of 10. You know, if they've never come across it before, they're kind of like, that doesn't make sense to me. But to a coach, because they're so ingrained in that world and so they understand it themselves, they think that's what they should be using on the website. So it's just being really aware of what your audience would use rather than what you would use all the time. If you use loads of intensifiers, so like you use words like super and really and extremely and lots of adjectives, make sure they're in your copy, and vice versa. If you're very direct, if you're like, I don't use the word probably, I don't use the word very, I'm very direct with what I say, then that should be reflecting in your language as well. And like I said, reading it out loud will really help you. So if you kind of said, this is going to be super awesome in your words, and then you read it out loud and you're like, I would never say super awesome, take it out. You know, this is how you're going to develop your brand style. If it helps you to think of somebody else, so rather than being like, oh, how would I write this? How would I say this? If it helps to think of someone who aligns with your values, who you think kind of aligns with you, doesn't have to be someone famous. It can be someone you know. It can be someone you've worked with. It can be a friend. It could be a mentor. Or it could be someone famous that you're like, they really sound like me and they embody my values. If it helps to think of that person and how they might answer that question or how they might phrase it, then do that instead. There's no harm in doing that, as long as that person is not totally different to you. So they have to be kind of very similar to you in how they present themselves and how they articulate themselves in order for this to work, to sound like yourself. But if it does help to embody someone else, then there's no harm in doing that as well. So the second question I get asked all the time is, when I talk to my clients, I'm warm and funny, but when I write, it sounds waffly and dull. So I get this all the time. It's kind of like, oh, you know, I can really articulate myself really well when I'm talking to clients, when I'm on the phone, when we're in person. And then as soon as I sit down to write a blog post, I'm kind of like boring. I'm just like going off on a tangent. I'm waffling. It just doesn't sound exciting. And the reason for this 9 times out of 10 is because you're using the school grammar rule book. So what you were taught at school, how you write grammatically and academically at school, is not necessarily how you can write, how you should write when you're marketing your business. So you can throw out the grammar rule book. Like, you can use the word and because at the beginning of sentences. You can put full stops where you might put a comma. You can use exclamation marks. Like, you really do want to kind of make your words come alive by making them sound like you speak. So I see this manifesting in 2 ways, this problem. So the first way is when someone was really good at English at school and they're kind of like, oh, I could knock an essay out in an hour. I was really great. Everything was kind of ticked off the list in terms of grammar. And then they come to write for their business and they're kind of writing and they're like, this is not resonating with my audience. Why isn't it resonating? Why isn't it coming across right? And that's because they're sticking to those academic rule books too much. And the second way I see it manifesting is when people have kind of labeled themselves as, I can't write. So maybe English was not a great subject for them at school. Maybe they kind of preferred other subjects. And so they labeled themselves as someone who couldn't write. And now, again, in their business, they're still carrying that label with them. And again, that leads to frustration and kind of like, you just don't even want to start because you know you can't write. So both of these ways it manifests, whether you think you're a great writer and it's too academic or you feel like you can't write at all, they're both massive, massive stoppers when it comes to writing a website, and they can both kind of be as detrimental to each other. So I'm giving you permission today to throw out the rule book, to speak how you sound, to write how you speak, and start sentences with and above. and read everything out loud. That is my biggest tip today. Just really make sure whenever you write anything, read it out loud. Does it sound like you? Is there anything you need to change? And it's good in terms of kind of checking for typos and things as well. So it's really great. Cool. Okay. So the second part of brand, other than brand voice, is brand messages. So your website is the perfect place to develop lots of brand messages that you can use in social media profiles, in presentations, in emails, you name it. But also these brand messages that kind of form the development of what you say, the foundation of what you say. And it's really important to get these right before you start writing, because if you can get these really great brand messages there, you can then form the rest of your web pages around them, and you kind of know what you stand out and stand up for in your industry. Then you can kind of be like, okay, so this is what I want to say as my brand message. So how can I then write around that? And again, it means you're not starting from scratch. So to get started, you probably have some brand messages already. You might not think you do, especially if you've been in business a while. So what I find, and what I always do when I work with my clients, is I will go to all the places they have written about their business online. So their Instagram bio, their Facebook business profile about page, their LinkedIn profile about page, presentations they've written, directories they've put their business on, anywhere where you've described your business. And more often than not, when the character limit is really small, you're forced to kind of be a lot more succinct and a lot more clear and concise in your message. And that's where the gold comes. So when you've only got 140 characters in your Instagram bio, for example, that message is probably really strong. So pick everything out. If you do have these, I just want you to go everywhere you've described your business, everywhere you've written about it, and put it all together in one document and see if there's any really great messages that you're like, I forgot I wrote that, that's really great. That could be a really good brand message for your website. So collect them all together. If you don't have these, that's absolutely great. We've got a little exercise coming up that will help you formulate them. So finding your standout statement. So this is your brand message, or this one statement that you're going to stand up and stand out for, and it works perfectly as an about page intro. So I'm going to show you some examples in a minute, but this is a really great way to set up your about page. So you're talking about what you really stand for, and it really starts your credibility on your about page, and then you can kind of go into your brand story from there. And I do loads on this in the Website Words workshop. So we kind of do this whole exercise about page intros. So it's a really, really powerful exercise, and it's called the I Believe exercise. Now, I do this for my business probably every 6 months or so, because what you believe to be true is going to evolve over time and it's going to change. So it's important to kind of keep refreshing this idea, this exercise, and just kind of get a gauge on what you do feel to be true. So what I want you to do is write I believe down the side of a Google Doc or a Word doc, or however you want to do it, pen and paper, whichever way you want to do it. And then you just go to town, filling in the rest of the statement with what you believe to be true about your industry, about your business, about your offer, about your clients. So I believe, and then fill in the rest of the sentence. So let me show you an example of one of my hypnotherapy clients. So she filled in this exercise, and she just kind of said, everything starts with I believe, and then everything she believes to be true. So clinical hypnotherapy makes permanent and lasting positive changes. I believe accessing the unconscious mind is the most effective and efficient way to evoke change. So you can see how these are really powerful. Like by starting with I believe, you really do delve into what you believe to be true. And as you're writing them, you're going to see common themes emerging. So you're going to be like, oh, this kind of theme keeps coming up. I obviously feel really strongly about this. There might be one message where you're like, nailed it. There it is. That's my brand message. That's this kind of standout statement. But it might be that you kind of see this theme and you kind of combine a few together and create this kind of standout statement that you can use on your about page. It's so, so powerful. Works on your homepage as well. And it's just a great little exercise just to get that idea in your head before you start writing your website, just so you kind of like, okay, I know that this is what I stand for. So how can I incorporate that in the rest of my copy? So it's such a powerful little exercise, and I want you to kind of go away and do that straight away if you can, or tonight or tomorrow, and really get this document going for your business. And as I said, it's never ending. It's always evolving. Just keep it and keep adding to it. And it'll be a really great little reference point for your business going forward, and especially for your website copy. All right. So stepping onto the A in my BAM method, which is audience. So I said earlier that just knowing what your target audience has for breakfast is not going to mean you can write for them automatically. And that is 100% true. However, you do need to know 5 core things about your audience in order to then write for them. So in my website words workshop, I have this whole kind of target audience questionnaire, and every question we ask specifically helps you write a certain part of your website. So I've formulated it that way. But what I've done today is, because we're kind of here for the quick wins, is I've narrowed it down into 5 questions or 5 things you need to know about your audience before you can write for them and where they might fit in your website. So what keeps them up at night, or what occupies their shower thoughts? What is this thing that's kind of niggling in their head all the time? And it's usually a problem or frustration that you can solve for them. So what is it that's kind of like really ingrained and they're just kind of like, I don't know how to solve this for myself? What is that? That's great as your homepage intro. Starting with the problem on your homepage will really hook people in. So I always recommend starting with the problem. What's the outcome of the outcome you provide? So this is a bit interesting. So rather than talking about the outcome, so for example, for my website words workshop, I might talk about how you get high converting, sales psychology backed website copy for your website. That is the outcome. But what's the outcome of that? What does that mean for people? How can we elevate that message even higher? So I know that once someone has a really great high converting website, they can then go and do marketing, spend their time, spend their money on marketing, and it's going to lead to a website that converts. So they're going to get ROI. I also know that it means when their website's working really hard, they can kind of make sales while they sleep if that's the way their business works. So it's really powerful, those kind of elevated outcomes. So not just thinking about what you actually do, but then how that impacts someone's greater, bigger business or life. Why might they say, no, this isn't for me? So the kind of unwritten rule in copywriting is that everybody is reading your website looking for a reason to say no. So humans, as our nature is just to be kind of cautious. It's to be kind of a little bit like we don't want to make the wrong decision. So we're kind of reading things like, this sounds really great, but she hasn't mentioned this, or I don't know if I can do this, or I don't have the time, or I don't have the money. Time and money are usually the biggest 2 objections, I will say, with service-based. So if you can weave those objections through your copy, you're kind of answering them as they talk, or even create a whole section on objection busting on your homepage. By the end, they're reading and they're kind of like, I don't have any objections left. I don't have any reason to say no. And it kind of then makes the conversion a no-brainer. So knowing why they might say no is really, really powerful. And what are the smaller wins they'll get from working with you? So often we do kind of concentrate on these ultimate benefits, these outcomes of the outcomes, and they're so, so important, especially for headlines. But we also need to think about the fact that people don't emotionally engage with something that's more than 90 days in the future. So if your ultimate benefit is going to be kind of in 6 months' time, in a year's time, they will find it hard to emotionally connect. So although you do need to talk about that, you also need to talk about the smaller wins that they'll get. So is it ticking something off the to-do list? Is it that they get to sit down with their partner that night and say, I finally made progress on this thing I've been worrying about for 6 months? So making sure you're including the smaller wins and knowing what those smaller wins might be for people in your website is really, really powerful. And then the last one, which I'm going to tell you why you need to know this next, is what books might people read to help solve their main problem or frustration. So if you know what books people read, I will then go on to tell you why this is important, but it means that you can start reflecting the words that they have in their head across your website. So let's get on to that now. So this is voice of customer research. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this is the secret sauce. This is what lights me up. This is what is so, so exciting. And this is the secret to great copywriting. So the best copywriters in the world do not do the writing themselves. They let their ideal clients do the writing for them. And this is why you can never sit down at your laptop and hope that inspiration will suddenly appear. You need to do this research beforehand, and it's fun, I promise. Now there's loads and loads and loads and loads of different ways to do voice of customer research. But we're here for the small wins. So I'm just going to teach you one really, really quick, simple way today that you can kind of do right now. And it's going to help you whether you're writing an Instagram caption or whether you're writing your whole website. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. First of all, I just wanted to share how powerful knowing this little tip can be. So Kylie was a member of my website words workshop last year. And she used this voice of customer techniques that I teach to get 4 new clients and the most engagement she's ever got from a post. So you can really see how powerful knowing this can be. So I'm going to teach you a really quick way through Amazon. So Amazon is great because it is such a huge bank of information. People love writing reviews on Amazon, and it's just kind of the biggest source of this global kind of network of reviews. So as a service business, how we use Amazon is we identify self-help books in your niche. So books that people might read that solves the problem that you also solve for them. So for example, if you are a life coach or a confident coach, you might know that your audience might read Brené Brown or Tony Robbins. So what you want to do is create this list of self-help books. If you're not sure, just Google it. Honestly, you will get the answer. So if you were a life coach, a confidence coach, for example, I would Google top books for building my confidence and see what books come up. You want the best sellers because you want the more reviews. Like anything obscure, you're not going to get enough reviews and not enough kind of information. So get your list, go on Amazon. You're looking for 5-star reviews because you get the most robust reviews there. With 1 stars, it tends to be more around like, my book didn't arrive on time, or I don't like the author's writing style. So it's more about that side of things. So yeah, going to the 5-star reviews really helps. And all you're going to do is look at the reviews and copy and paste really interesting words and phrases from those reviews into a Google Doc. That is it. So I want you to just read through and pick out things, and I'm going to show you an example right now. And what you're doing is you're creating this really great bank of words and phrases that your ideal client uses that then you can use on your website. So you are not starting from scratch. You are starting with this really great, insightful copy that you can then go to use. And like I said, you can use this whether you can sit and do 5 minutes of voice of customer when you don't have the inspiration for a blog post you're about to write or an Instagram caption, or you can sit down and do 5 hours of voice of customer because you're about to write your web page. So either way, it is inspiration and it means you are not starting from scratch. So let me show you an example of how I've done this in my business. So I know that if someone is wanting to learn copywriting skills or wanting to learn how to write for their business, they might read Everybody Writes by Anne Handley or Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Those are really popular books within that niche. So what I go on Amazon and I've copy and pasted 2 reviews that really demonstrate how powerfully this can work. So this lady wrote, sometimes you sit down to that piece of writing for your business and the words just don't flow. You find yourself using similar words over and over. So that is such powerful insight for me. Now I know that my ideal client feel like the words don't flow or that they're using similar words over and over again. I wouldn't know that without reading this review. I might not have that insight, so I can use that in my copy. I might say something like, do you feel like you're just using the same words over and over again? So I actually reflect that problem back to them in my website. Another for Building a Story Brand was the message was all about me. So I might know my ideal client struggles with this idea that they're writing about themselves and not necessarily about the person that's reading. And that's a real struggle for people. So now I know that I can write about it. Clear as fresh water, which I just think is a really great little interesting phase to pick out, and I might use that somewhere. They want to build a powerful and clear message. So using those words, reflecting those words back in my website is really, really powerful. So all I want you to do is go on Amazon reviews, copy and paste, and create this really, really great spreadsheet in order to not be starting from scratch. So now when you go to write your website, you've got this amazing bank of copy already there for you, and you just kind of need to work out what pages to put it on. And that's what we do in the Website Words Workshop. That's when we go on to actually write the copy. We work out where on your website the voice of customer research needs to go. All right, so this is the 3rd section of my BAM method. Now, I am aware up to now we have learned a lot. We have gone through a lot. You've got a lot to do. You've got your I believe exercise. You've got your 5 questions to find out about your audience. You've got voice of customer research to do. So this bit is a little bit less intense. It's a little bit easier to digest because basically it's kind of similar for everybody if you are a one-on-one service business. So when you come, it's so powerful to map your pages because then you know where you're going. Like if you don't know what pages you're going to have, it's really hard to then sit down and start, I'll just write my homepage. But then as you're writing your homepage, you're like, would this go on a different page? I'm not sure because I don't know if I'm going to have that page or not. So knowing the pages in advance, really, really useful. These are the 4 pages every service-based business needs. So if you are just starting or if you are just refreshing, these are the pages to concentrate on. Obviously, we can add as many as we want from here, but these are your kind of basics. So your home page, your about me page, your how I work page, which you can call my method, my process, how we work, whatever you want to call it. The idea is the same. This is where you're kind of talking about your unique method and talking about how you package up your services. So I have a whole module on each of these pages in the website Words Workshop. And the how I work page in particular is really, really useful because I talk to you about how you develop your own unique steps and method to get your clients from where they are to where they want to be. And I also talk about how to package up your services. So huge mistake I see with service businesses is just kind of listing out what they do and asking the reader to then decide what it is they want. People don't want to decide what it is they want. They want you to say, okay, based on what you've told me, I think this is what you need, because they're looking for you for expert guidance. If you make them think too much and be like, oh, I don't know if I need this one or this one or this one, too confusing, they'll bounce, they won't convert. So what you want to do is package up your services into these like really neat kind of packages. And I show you how to do that in the website Words Workshop as well. It's not something you need to do before you start writing, although it would help to kind of have an idea of, oh, okay, how could I package up what I do? Is it based by outcome, for example, or is it based by stage of life or business or where they're at? Or the problem they have, can I create packages around those? So I teach you exactly how to do that in the module of the website Words Workshop. And the last one is contact page. I don't want you to forget about your contact page. So quite often what we see is just like whatever the template on Squarespace or WordPress or whatever is, that's your contact page. And that's fine. Like we don't want to go to like into War and Peace, but we do need to consider it. We do want to include a testimonial on there. This is the place where your person is thinking about contacting you. And it's a really, really important page. So make sure you think of a great headline for it. Make sure it's still in your brand voice and your writing style. And make sure you have a testimonial on there. Get people to kind of, okay, feel confident about contacting you. So those are the 4 pages that you kind of really need as a service business. So now you know what your web pages are. This is where you kind of pull everything together. So you look at the brand messages from your I Believe exercise. It answers the 5 questions about your audience. You look at the words and phrases that you discovered while doing your Amazon review research. So what I do is I open a Google Doc called Homepage. I open a Google Doc called About Page, and I open a Google Doc called How I Work page. I recommend Google Docs because the editing process is so much easier. The version control is so much easier. The sharing, if you're sharing with a designer, is so much easier. And then you start looking at everything you've done today. So your I believe statements, where might that I believe statement sit? They're really great for About Page. Copy and paste and throw it in there. Where might the answer to this question of what occupies my target audience's shower thoughts be? What's this really big problem that I identified they have by answering that question? Where could that go on my website? Maybe on the homepage intro. And if you're finding like, oh, I'm not sure where this one would go, this page or this page, just put it on both. For now, we are just drafting. We are in the messy middle. We do not worry about style. We do not worry about it looking good, about flow. We're literally just starting to throw ideas onto pages so that we don't have this blank page. The blank page is the scariest bit. That's the bit where you're kind of like, I don't know where to start. I'm daunted. I'm overwhelmed. So we never want to look at a blank page when we come to write. So if we've done all this beforehand, when you actually come to write, you're kind of like, okay, I don't have a blank homepage. I've got this idea, this problem, this idea here that I pulled from my Amazon research, and it just kind of starts formulating the idea. So knowing the journey that your customer is going to take through your pages and through your website is really useful too. So generally, people will go from homepage to About Page to How I Work page. That's the kind of flow people tend to take. So help them on the journey. Have a button to your About Page on your homepage. Have a button to your How I Work page on your About Page. Make sure you're helping people flow through that journey. A, it's just a great user experience for someone because you kind of know where they want to go next. And B, Google love it. So SEO, if someone's on your site, they're navigating around the pages, they're reading the pages, that's absolutely brilliant for SEO. So it'll help you in those 2 ways. And the last thing you really want to know about your pages when you're mapping your pages, so you need to know what pages you want. You need to know the journey people are going to take through those pages and help them on that journey. And you also need to know what is the thing you want someone to do from your website. So what is that main call to action? As a service business, it's generally booking a call, booking a discovery call. And if it is, how do they go about doing that? Do they use Candly? And I've shared a link to Candly there, which is a free booking service. So they just click the link and they can book a time that suits them. Or does it open an email to you because you kind of need to know a bit more information about them before the call? Does it open a contact form? Make that process as frictionless as possible. It really does need to be smooth and easy and quick, but know what it is before you start writing. Know what you want someone to do so that as you're writing your web pages, you can then take them on that journey to take that action. And it really helps in your head. What is the end goal? I'm here at the beginning of my journey of writing my website, and this is the end goal. This is what I want someone to do. So how do I lead them there? And knowing that in advance is just so useful when it comes to actually writing and not being kind of daunted by it all and overwhelmed. So that's the BAM method. So we talked about brand, which is brand voice, throwing out the school rule book, brand messages. So finding that standout statement by doing I believe exercise. We talked about audience. We talked about the 5 questions you really need to answer in order to write for your client and where those answers might sit on your website. We talked about audience research. So we talked about using Amazon to do voice of customer research and how powerful that can be. It means you're never starting from scratch from a blank page. And we talked about mapping. So we talked about the pages you need. We talked about the journey someone takes. And we talked about knowing where that journey ends and where you want to lead someone to before you actually start to write. So that is the BAM method. So now what I want you to do is thinking about everything you've learned today on a scale of 1 to 10. So this is the question we kind of started today with. How does it feel to write your website now? So how much more confident do you feel? How do you feel? How much less or overwhelmed do you feel? If you were to literally sit down now and start writing, do you know what you would do first? Do you know where you would go in order to actually not feel so overwhelmed when you start to write? So I want you to kind of think about what that number is now, and has it shifted from where you were before? And if so, and I hope it has, you can kind of see how having support from someone along the way, even though you're doing this yourself, this is all you are writing yourself, but I am kind of guiding you the way it would help to do because I've done it so many times before. So you can kind of see how, yes, you can do it. Yes, you can write, but it does help to have that support in your corner. And that's what I want you to take away from today. So you can write your website. It does not have to feel overwhelming or daunting. It does not have to feel like you're in kind of overwhelm paralysis mode. If you have support and guidance from someone who has done it a zillion times before, like me, you can write yourself, but it always helps to have someone behind you in your corner helping you. Okay, so now you know what you need to do before you start writing your website. So you know that you can't just sit down and write. You know you need to map out your brand messages, you need to get to know your audience, and you need to map out your pages. But what happens next? So you're ready to write, you've got everything in place. What about writing the words themselves? So I just want to quickly introduce you to my Website Words Academy. So it used to be called the Website Words Workshop. So if you ever hear it said like that, that's why, but it's the Website Words Academy, exactly the same thing. So what it is a step-by-step program for writing sales psychology-backed website copy within 4 weeks. So I take you through 3 of the pages along with sales psychology, along with SEO principles, all within 4 weeks, and you're never feeling overwhelmed, stuck, or alone. No other copywriting courses that I have found focus so intently on the sales psychology like this. And the idea is that, yes, you are writing your website, but actually all the tools you learn in terms of sales psychology and persuasion principles and behavioral economics and behavioral psychology can be applied to everything you write for your business, and also in different aspects of your business as well. So although we use the website as a way to kind of learn what to do, it's the skills are totally transferable to anything else you might want to write for your business. So inside the Website Words Academy, you get editable step-by-step templates for each of the web pages, so you can write directly onto a Google Doc, or you can download the PDFs. You can track your progress and refer back. You get lifetime access. The course portal is really easy to use. It's all easy to link to. The videos are nice and short. There's not huge amounts of videos to sit through. It's really nice and short, one for each section with explainers, with real life examples. And also there's some special bonuses in there as well. I talk about pricing strategy. There's also a bonus from a website designer, a lady called Jess, who talks through how to kind of the best ways to design the website, and also a content marketing expert called Mariah, who talks through ways to get people to your website. So how to build traffic to your website once you've got this amazing high converting website. So there's loads and loads of value in there. So you learn my clever trick method, which is how to understand what's going on in your ideal client's head and heart and reflect that in your copy, which honestly, once you know that tool, once you have that skill set, you can use it for everything for your business, for inspiration, for your marketing, just to kind of really understand the products or the services that you should be providing to people. So it really is amazing, that module. I always get such good feedback. Then we go into your homepage, we go into your about page, we go into how I work page, which is kind of that services where you kind of split people out. And then the last module just talks through the sales psychology and sense checking it all and SEO and just making sure everything's as amazing as it can be. As I said before, you get some free bonuses. So a tutorial from Jess, who is this web design expert. She's amazing. And also a link to a discount for her website design templates if you do decide you want to go down that route as well. And also Mariah, who will help you get traffic to your new website. So there's some really great bonuses in there as well. So past Website Words Academiers have just kind of loved the clarity and the confidence they get of just being able to write for their business since going through the program, and just making it easier, making it quicker, just feeling like they're not sitting down and just kind of staring at a blank screen. And as we know, as we run a digital business, we are going to have to write for it. So if you can learn this skill, even if you outsource it in the future, just knowing what good copywriting looks like will set you apart from your competition. Just going back to that quote from Kylie, just learning that skill, and what Kylie's referring to here is the clever trick method. So the voice of customer stuff that I do in the first module. It really does work. Like, one post got her 4 new clients and the most engagement ever. So you can really see how this works. It's really easy, simple process. So you will receive a link in an email to join. You get a special discount. You can pay in whatever currency. It's through Stripe. So wherever you are in the world, absolutely fine. And you get email straight away, login details straight away, and you can work through it at your own pace. And I'm around for support as well the whole time via email or Instagram. So that's the Website Words Academy. Just if you feel like you've got everything sorted in terms of getting ready to write and now you want some support with the actual writing side, that would be the next step. All right, well, thank you so much for listening to my masterclass today. I hope you've taken loads away from it. I am at 23 Wise Words. If you have any comments or you have any questions, I'm always there. Just shoot me a DM.